Hi, I'm Sarah L and welcome to Boating New Zealand. It's been an action-packed summer, so let's have a look at what's been going on with the latest in news and reviews.
John Egglesheim for Boating New Zealand magazine. Today we're aboard the very interesting Dreadnought 7500. Dreadnought Boats is a collaboration between naval architect Blair Lewis of Transfor Marine Naval Architects and master boat builder Stuart Dorr, who owns Ultec Marine. The striking-looking vinyl-wrapped Dreadnought D7500 is a demonstrator, but the team has several other models up to 8.5 metres on their books, with the ability to offer completely custom designs at any size. All models can be built to survey with either Dreadnought D or vertical V bows. Custom options are almost unlimited. Carried on a dual-axle Acron 795 trailer, the D7500 rig weighs in easily at under 3.5 tonnes. The boat was designed around a Cox 300 horsepower diesel outboard, but it is instead fitted with a Yamaha 300 horsepower petrol V6. The Yamaha is considerably lighter and cheaper than the diesel, so lead ballast and a flooding outboard pod has been added at the stern to trim the boat correctly. With a minimal bulkhead and a super wide cabin opening, the hardtop morphs seamlessly into the forward cabin with its generous full-length bunks. The benefits of the vessel's long waterline length and reverse bow configuration are particularly apparent in the vast forward cabin, which would easily sleep three. It's so spacious you can lie crossways. 360 litres of fuel is housed under the cockpit sole, accessible through a hatch with deep gutters draining aft over the transom. Opening the hatch also reveals some of the boat's structure, including the solid keel bar and frames at 700 spacings, and the bilges are protected by chromate paint. On the port side of the cockpit there's storage in a deck locker or seat, and in full-length cockpit side shells. Two 12-volt outlets are provided for electric reels. There are plenty of rod holders, a rocket launcher across the back of the hardtop overhang, twin transom doors with step-through transom doors optional for sport fishers, a washdown hose and a fully featured transom bait station with a functional bait board, freshwater sink, rod holders, 60-litre live well and a locker to house batteries, pumps and switches. The cockpit is raised above the waterline to be self-draining, while the boat's high sides offer security, good thigh support and plenty of freeboard. So I'm with Blair Lewis from Dreadnought Boats. Now tell me about the boat. It's quite unusual in many ways. It's certainly not a run-of-the-mill trailer boat. You're the designer.
Yes.
And what were you seeking to achieve with this boat?
Just going for a good all-round family boat with a soft ride. We're trying to, we're not saying we're breaking the mould and doing something new because it's been done in Europe for a long time.
Sure. So the name Dreadnought, I mean, to me that sort of speaks of battleships, you know, but particularly of a bow shape that you've have adopted for this boat. What's unusual or special about that bow shape, and why have you gone down that track?
It gives you a longer waterline length.
Yes.
You bring your anchoring gear back over the waterline. You're clumping your weights a little bit closer together.
Right.
Your centre of gyration, so your boat pitches less.
Yes, yes. And the interior, what benefits do you gain from this type of design?
You basically end up with a 7.5 metre boat that has the interior space of 8 to 8.5 metre boat.
And look, that's quite apparent with this particular vessel. It's really, really spacious inside the hardtop there. I'm speaking with Stuart Dorr from Ultec Marine. Stuart, you're the boat builder of this particular vessel. Again, were there some challenges to a boat of this sort, or is it something that you've actually really enjoyed putting together?
The bottom hull, obviously because of the shape, is quite challenging and technical. Just takes a little bit more time than a conventional boat. They're really interesting builds because they're different. We're not doing the production side of things, so that sort of excites you a little bit more.
Now, I think that's something that when we talked about the boat earlier today, that you know it's completely customisable, that you could do almost anything on this hull.
Yeah, that's right. If the customer wants to change the cabin, the height, whatever the layout he would like, we can do that at the design process. So it's not hard at that time. There's a lot of production boats, you pretty much get what you see.
Right, right. The hull plates are 6mm, is that correct?
Yeah, so the bottom hull is 6,
yes.
Sides are 5.
Right.
Frames, stringers are all 5mm,
yeah,
with rider bars.
Okay, so she's obviously pretty strongly built.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Cheers. Well, it's a very interesting boat, and we're happy to be out here on the water today and enjoying it. Thanks for talking to us, Stuart.
All right, thank you very much.
So, what's it like on the water? Well, it's like a much bigger boat. The unusual dreadnought bow and super steep dead rise forward slices through head seas, with the spray peeling away from the chines to either side. We had quite a rough day to contend with, but progress was remarkably serene, especially since you don't get a true impression of the speed from the helm because there's very little pitching and minimal banging. As with other planing hulls with a long waterline I've reviewed, the dreadnought transitions almost imperceptibly onto the plane at about 10 to 12 knots. The boat's attitude remains level throughout, and the only real indication you are planing is the changing engine note. Also apparent is a lack of squeaks and rattles from the interior. The boat is really quiet. Booming is also notably absent thanks to the vessel's comprehensive structure. It's designed to survey standards, says Lewis, which means he hasn't skimped anywhere. He reckons cheap is not the right answer. He wants his boats to not only perform well, but to also be durable. The helm position works fine, although the tall, fixed helm seat with a bolster seems a long way from the wheel at first. In reality, it turned out to be comfortable enough, and the tube footrest on the bulkhead gives good bracing and support for the feet, although you're a long way off the floor when you're sitting on the seat. The white wheel looks smart, and the console's got plenty of space for a 12-inch Raymarine MFD, autopilot, VHF, zip wake trim tabs, Maxwell capstan controls, and Yamaha's digital display. And this boat's also equipped with Vespa AIS. In keeping with the boat's high spec level, it's fitted with Yamaha's Helmmaster EX system with joystick control for low speeds and a whole range of clever functions and features for fishing and general utility. It came in handy getting the boat back on the air dock in the confined spaces of the marina with a strong crosswind. During our run, we cruised happily at between 22 and 28 knots, about 4,200 RPM at 28 knots, but the boat holds the plane right down to 12 knots, which could be really useful in rough conditions. With the Yamaha 300, top speed is about 37 knots, but outright speed is not what the Dreadnought's all about. What it is about is an abundance of interior space, a remarkably composed and comfortable ride, and the ability to cover water quickly and efficiently. It might be only 7.5 metres long, 7.15 metres on the waterline, but from the inside it feels at least a metre longer, with seakeeping to match. The Dreadnought D7500 could be too radical for some, and its internal layout is still being tweaked. But with its clear advantages over many other boats of this size, could it be our boating future? Perhaps. John Ecclestone from Boating New Zealand. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to see more of these videos, please subscribe to our channel.
So the first thing you want to do in a man overboard situation is to press the man overboard button. We just press the plus and the minus together and it locks our man overboard waypoint in there. Now we want to get back there fairly urgently. We want to get our guy out of the water, and it depends if he's conscious or unconscious. We'll have a little conversation about that at the end. Don't do anything crazy on the power. The temptation is to gas it and get back there as quick as you can. Don't do that. You'll just chuck anyone else who's standing on the back of the boat out. So we want to just get back promptly but smoothly is the key. Now you can see our crew has got a good pointing look at the man overboard. Okay, so now I'm just doing my approach, and you'll see from the drone footage that I need to get this guy on the starboard side of this boat. That's because this is the side of the boat that I'm driving on. Now I'm going to get upwind of the man overboard, and I'm going to allow the wind to push me sideways. Now the benefit of this technique, this is a particularly good one if you're single-handed on the boat, if you haven't got any other crew. So now you should be able to see from the drone footage, you'll see there's an arrow indicating the direction of the wind. Now we must keep that wind perpendicular to the boat to maximize the surface area of the boat that's presented to the wind, and that will push us faster sideways. So once we start drifting, you're going to see see that drift accelerates. Now there are some negatives with this manoeuvre, and the biggest negative is if it's a strong windy day, he could get pushed underneath the boat and it makes it very difficult to recover him. And the second one is you don't want to be doing a side on if you've got big breaking waves over the beam of the boat. I'll show you another approach in a second. But here we are, we're just drifting down, and you can see we've got a nice smooth close rate, and we're not coming in all excited. I'm working the steering wheel and the gears in and out of gear simply to keep the boat perpendicular to the wind. That is the be all and end all of this manoeuvre. Now here we go, I'm just lining him up with the cockpit, and as soon as I hear that John has got contact on this guy, I'm going to go into neutral and I'm going to turn the engine off. Great, so I can see he's got contact, neutral and engine off, either by the key or the kill cord. And the reason we turn the engine off is so that we don't accidentally, at the heat of the moment, people have left it in gear and run back to try and grab the man overboard and therefore chop them up in the propeller. Or equally, as you're jumping up, you might hit the throttle with your elbow. So if it's safe to do so, and I stress if it's safe to do so, you turn the engine off. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the man overboard button. There's a little bit more to this than you may realise. And the first one is you need to know how to activate it on your GPS plotter. And on ours, we just press the plus and the minus together, and it locks our man overboard waypoint in there. If you get asked by search and rescue where the person went in, you obviously give them the latitude and longitude. But something else that's very important is the time. The time is important because search and rescue will work out where they're likely to be based on the drift and the tides and the wind, as long as they know how long he's been in the water. So it's good, just get yourself familiar with that, and don't make the first time you use that when you need it, because you won't have a clue how to use it, trust me. Okay, so this time we've got a man overboard. I'm going to do a second type of approach. Now, this approach I'm about to show you is a lot trickier than the first drift down technique that we demonstrated. I'm going to drive nose into the wind, keeping the bow into the wind. We use this primarily if you've got a crew to help you, and secondly, if it's really rough, this is the technique you have to use if it's particularly rough and you're concerned that if you go side on to the waves, you're going to destabilize the boat. So I go about, generally speaking, 10 to 15 boat lengths downwind, and then once we're happy we're far enough away, we do give it a good distance downwind so we can turn and line ourselves up. We want to have enough time to line ourselves up with the person. Now here we are, I'm bow straight into the wind. I call it 12 o'clock to the wind. So if you just have a look out the front now, you'll see we've got our man overboard. Now I want minimum steerage speed in this situation. I want to keep him just ever so fine on the starboard bow. You need to be insanely careful you do not bump into this guy, and this is why it takes practice. I'm just focused on keeping him right next to the boat, and as soon as I hear contact, engine off in neutral, and now we get back to pick him up. Now again, engine only off if it's calm enough to do it, and we generally speaking do this when it's rough, so it might not be engine off if it's a rough day. But now we'll get back and we'll have a look at how we're going to recover this man overboard into the boat. Now, a real common problem here is how we get someone into the boat. I can't advise you how to get someone into your boat. The reason being, different boats have different methods of getting people in. Now, generally speaking, on trailer boats, if you've got an outboard engine, on the aeration plate that's just above the propeller, that really makes a good foothold if you haven't got a boarding ladder, and you might be able to grab a hand if the person is conscious. We can pull them up over and into the boat. So that's one way. Otherwise, we can rig up lines and try and get them in, or look, sometimes just brute force. Now, generally speaking, if it's a couple, a husband and a wife maybe out on the boat, sometimes the wife may not have enough strength to pull an unconscious husband into the boat. Now, in those situations, what we must do is we must simply secure a line to our person in the water, secure them to the boat, and then go and grab some flares if there's any boats around us. Generally, the orange hand smoke would be our daytime flare we would use. Crack that, and then we want a mayday on the VHF radio. If you've got an EPIRB or a PLB, this is why you want all your crew to know how to use it, because in this situation right now, we need to get help as quick as we possibly can, and the PLB or EPIRB is probably one of the quickest ways to get help to us. But for today, what we're going to do is we're going to try and bring him around to the back of the boat and see if we can manhandle this guy and pull him up and stick his bum onto this as if he's an unconscious person. Okay, John, if we just try and work him around the back, I'm going to be very careful here that I don't end up joining our friend.
Slippery.
Now, if they're wearing a life jacket, this is another reason we wear life jackets. It's not just for buoyancy, it's to give us something to grab onto, and that's why we wear crotch straps on life jackets too. So once we've got him, grab the life jacket, pull him up and in, get his bum on that, and do everything we can, protect the head. Look, it's not going to be pretty. There's no pretty, attractive way to pull people into a boat if they're unconscious. Just do what you got to do. Whew.
Ross, you're the son of the original owner, and I understand there was quite an unusual situation with this boat in the sense that your father bought it twice. Can you explain how that happened?
Rare. Rare. He loved the boat, and but decided that he wanted to build himself something a little bit bigger and more comfortable.
So he'd had this one built for him?
Yes, he'd had this built for him. The hull was designed by Supreme Craft, or McGeady's as we used to call them.
Yeah.
And typical McGeady type hull. And he did a lot of the interior. My father did a lot of the interior design himself, as he did with the second boat. But she was launched in about 61, and I think that it was probably around about 67. He sold it with the intention of getting a bigger boat. But at that stage, what he hadn't allowed for was the fact that all the boat building, or not all the boat building yards, he wanted to go in particular to salt houses and get one of their hulls, and there was about a 3-year wait. And at the time, this boat came back up on the market for some particular reason. The fellow who bought it off him so he bought it to cover the 2 or 3 years that the other boat, that he had to wait for the other boat. Always grizzled that he paid more for it than what he sold it for.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. But your memories of the vessel, she was launched in 1961, your childhood would have been on this book on
very
board?
Very much so. We used to get away during the summer, most weekends. I'd be picked up virtually off the school bus and taken to a Kahu Bay where she was moored, and on board, and get out of the old school uniform and put my weekend shorts on, and if there was homework to be done on the way down to the bottom end around Ponui, it'd be done in this cabin here while the parents were up on the flying bridge.
But still, Simon has done a lot of work, but there'll be bits of the boat that you recognise in that ring a bell.
Every bit, I believe that's the old galley sink, for instance. But this saloon here is pretty much the original size. There was no interior staircase up to the flying bridge, which is a huge improvement to the boat. Mind you, the flying bridge was an open flying bridge. No one worried too much in those days about the exposure to the sunshine.
Yeah, but still, it's good. It brings back good memories for you to see this boat back out on the water.
It's just lovely to see it. The roots of the old ship are still here, and I just love seeing people do this type of thing to older vessels and bring them back to life. And all credit to Simon, and I believe the previous owners have probably looked after her pretty well too. And no, it's just something that is fantastic.
Simon, you've owned the boat for about 10 years, and you've just been through a year restoration. Was restoration always on the cards when you bought her?
Yeah, I think so, Lawrence. When we bought the boat, it needed a paint, and we've just been enjoying it as a family for 10 years. With it, I've been putting it to the back of my mind ever since then. But we've decided pretty much that the boat is the boat we want. So the wife gave me leave of absence to get stuck in. So pulled her up on the hard, and so began a full restoration. And the bones we were working with of the boat were exceptional. There's some photos of the original kauri tree, and it was a beautiful big log. So she's been beautifully built.
So the Cowrie hull, stringers, frames, that was all in good nick, nothing rotten, you didn't need to replace any of those?
No, absolutely terrific, absolutely amazing.
And she's single skin Cowrie?
Yeah, that's right, carbon
And they're full length planks?
They were, initially, the boat has been extended by 7 feet, which is pretty hard to tell. The aft cockpit is below us here, has been added on.
Not yourself, just
No.
before your time,
Yeah. I believe Lanes did the job, but we've yet to trace that one back.
Yeah.
There's lots of photographic evidence, but none of that particular phase.
Yeah. So you restored her in terms of aesthetic looks, new paint and things like that, but did you change her structurally as well?
Yeah, I did some extensive work where I felt she was weak in some of the frames, underneath the engine beds and so on. So we beefed a lot of that up as well. Just while I had the opportunity and I was out for so long, I did a bit of recorking around the garboard, and new props, new shafts, realigned those, realigned the struts, bearings and so on, that sort of stuff. So we did quite extensive work around that.
So the engines, it's hard to know, but I guess these are second, third, maybe fourth generation engines that are in this hull. They're Cummins at the moment. But you were saying you had to reprop them, so they presumably had props from a different era?
Yeah, so the props were mismatched in pitch, diameter. They had the same number of blades, that's about all. They're counter-rotating props, but also when we got new props, the shafts needed replacement as well, so we just went the whole hog, and did a number.
And is the performance difference noticeable?
Yeah, my expert engineer, Graham Joy, told me you'd get an extra 2 knots out of them, which I found hard to believe, but he was exactly right. You've got 2 knots more cruising and 2 knots more at top speed.
So the cruising the same RPM, but you're getting 2 knots more?
2 knots more, 9.5 knots at 1600 revs now, which is really fantastic.
It's a boat which she's 60 years old, launched in 1961. You could have bought a more modern boat. Have you got a thing for vintage vessels?
Absolutely.
Old classics?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to save as many as I can. Unfortunately, there's only one lifetime and one bank account. But this was this is definitely one worth saving. Like she's in such good condition, the hull wise and so on. What always lets them down is things like fastenings and the stanchions and the combings, the window frames. In this, I've replaced 14 windows in the boat.
Acrylic windows?
No, they're glass.
They're glass?
Yeah. The frames always give up because of the techniques that they used to use to put them in. The little tiny beads and so on, the paint always cracks. And so we hope to have, we've changed all that now, so yeah.
And in terms, I asked you about the structure, but in terms of the berths and that sort of situation, bathrooms, the galley, did you change any of that?
I have already put another shower in her. She's got a large shower now, 2 large showers. But apart from that, no, the interior layout. Since I've had the boat, I've made a staircase to get up to this level. I built this cockpit here that we're sitting in, the upper cockpit. I made it easier to get in and out of this one, added another berth up here, so I've done quite a bit inside it.
And what's your typical cruising profile? With your wife and children or friends?
Yeah. It's the dinner party boat basically. This is 18 or 20 people for dinner on board. So we consistently have 8 or 10 rubber duckies, 6, 8 or 10 rubber duckies tied up to the back at dinner time. Everyone comes over here and they always sit up here so that they can see their boats in the bay from our boat. But nobody sits on their boat and looks at my boat, unfortunately. But no, this is the right sort of
and fuel, you got a reasonable cruising range on this?
Yeah, I carry 1,800 litres of fuel and 1,800 of water, so yeah, we're up to the Bay of Islands. Yeah.
So you have a heritage yourself in the sense that you're renowned for your love of classic vintage vessels. What does it mean to you to have something like this, I guess, as part of your legacy?
Oh, it's nice to think it'll be a legacy, but I just want to save them for the future generations. She lasted 60 years. She's only had 4 owners since I got her, and 2 of those were the same owner. So the chap that had it built owned it twice. So that means 3 owners effectively. Everyone has owned it for at least 17 years. So the old Jack Taylor, the surveyor, who was too old to come and survey it when I bought it, asked me, first question was how many owners she had, and I said just the 4, and he said, oh, she's a good boat. And I said, what do you mean, Jack? And he said, She's never scared anybody, either in sea ride, you know, in the way she handles at sea, or in maintenance.
Yeah.
So the fewer owners, the better the vessel, the
Yeah.
more reliable the vessel, which is an interesting.
But it's a telling sort of
Yeah.
statistic, I guess. You know, if there are few people owning, they were all happy with it.
They're all happy with it. They're
Yeah.
all prepared to spend the money on it
Yeah.
because they gave her a good time, or she wasn't expensive to maintain, or she never needed any major work done. So all those reasons. So he didn't even feel he had to look at the boat to know just by that information.
John Ecclestone from Boating New Zealand. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to see more of these videos, please subscribe to our channel.
Well, that's all for now. I hope you've enjoyed those stories, and if you want to read more, check out the latest edition of Boating New Zealand.